G'day Internet, Max right here, and we have one of our favorite guests on the channel here, Juan Verde. Juan, thanks so much for being with us, buddy.
Max, great to see you, my friend.
It's great to see you actually. So the last time we
Mhm.
chatted, it was a week before the election. Bitcoin
Yes.
price was hovering just south of $70,000, I believe. And you told me that no, November 5th, the day of the election, was going to be one of your cycle lows. And you were
Yeah.
predicting very exciting price action after that. Well,
Yeah.
Nostradamus, you absolutely nailed it. November 5th, the price absolutely explodes. And within a few days, we've gone from 70,000 to 90,000. And it just is a big rip up. Do you want to take a moment to take your victory dance? It
I
should,
mean,
it
it
should be, it
was,
should be, it should be this
yeah, it
dance,
should be
right? Isn't this the
the
dance?
Trump dance. Yeah, it should be the
The
Trump
Trump
dance.
dance.
Yeah, I believe I even said I think that my model is predicting a Trump victory, which I know may sound crazy, but for those of you familiar with the work of Martin Armstrong, who's kind of a mentor to me, he doesn't do crypto, sadly. He said many times he had a forecasting model for markets too. Mine is totally different, just for anybody who knows the man and his work. Mine is completely different. In fact, I don't know how he does what he does. But he did teach me that he realized eventually that with these forecasts, sometimes you can predict actual geopolitical events like president winning an election or war breaking out because the markets know. That's how he explained it to me. He said, well, the markets know, they act ahead of time. And so I thought the market, the Bitcoin market, was predicting a Trump victory. In fact, if you go to Polymarket, the last time you and I spoke a week ahead of the election, it had it like 65% probability of Trump winning. And Polymarket called the election way ahead of the media, like way ahead. I was actually in the US during election night because I thought it was going to be an exciting night and I wanted to be there, mostly because of my crypto bags. And that's exactly what happened. So I think the markets were already predicting a Trump victory. And I think my model somehow picked up on that. Which is why I made that prediction that I not only do I think Bitcoin rips on November 5, I think it will line up with Trump taking the White House. That is simply because I didn't really see Harris winning and then Bitcoin ripping higher. I mean, I did see Bitcoin going to new all-time highs, regardless of who won, but the spectacular fashion in which it broke out, no. I thought to myself, that has to be Trump victory, and the market just celebrated. So that's what happened. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Now, you asked me before we came on air.
I'll ask again. I'll ask again for the
Sure.
audience because I wanted to
Yeah.
learn a little bit about your processes and your understanding. And
Yeah.
so the language that you used on that recording about a week before the election was it would hit, I think it was a 60-day, maybe it was 80-day, but something along the lines of a 60-day cycle low on November 5th. That was your prediction. Now, when I
Yes.
look at the chart on that November 5th, even November 4th, the low is $67,000. But for the last, 200 days, it's been in a range of like 72 all the way down to 50. So 67 didn't seem like a cycle low to me. Can you help me reconcile what I'm understanding about your model and what your model told you actually?
Sure. Let me try to break this down so that it makes sense. Maybe I've been doing this too long and this makes sense, but maybe for those of you watching, it doesn't. Now, the prediction that my model gave out is November 5 as an 80-day cycle low. November 5 is not an 80-day cycle low. It's a 20-day cycle low. The 80-day cycle breaks into 4 of these 20-day cycles. Now, what I've observed is that, remember, these are two different models. One is calling cycle highs or lows, and another one is predicting them. So it's a forecasting model versus what I call a timing model or a descriptive model. It looks back. One of them looks forward, the other one looks back. The one that looks back, it's great for knowing where you are. And the last time you and I spoke, I said, well, my model has already given me a signal based on the breakout on October 20. I think it was Sunday, October 20. My model was saying buy Bitcoin. I was fully invested by then because of that 90% probability of a new all-time high, just based on that. This is ahead of the election. That's the backwards-looking model. The forward-looking model is making predictions, and I created it to forecast specifically 80-day highs and lows. But what I've learned since I created it is that it does much more than that. Sometimes what it will forecast is big breakouts, like the one on November 5. And the way I can tell it's going to be, or it could be a big movement or a big move, is that I see a huge spike on the model. The last time before November 5 that I had a huge spike on my model was August 6. If those of you who remember, the first week of August is the biggest crash in Bitcoin this year and the biggest macro event. It's the yen carry trade unwind of early August. That was another huge spike on my model. And it also did not coincide with an 80-day cycle low, even though it was a huge crash. So when I see huge spikes on the forecasting model, I know that it may not be an 80-day cycle high or a low, but it's going to be a big important date. Going into November 5, going into election night, I thought, okay, this is going to be the breakout. It's not going to be an 80-day cycle low. It will be a breakout. It will break on that day, and it's going to start a huge move. November 5 is critical in Bitcoin's chart because it is the day that Bitcoin breaks to a new all-time high. It breaks the high from March 13, I think it was, at 73,000. So first time Bitcoin breaks that with conviction. It's a significant date, but it's not an 80-day cycle. This is kind of how you reconcile the two models. And yeah, it's taken me months, but by now I know when I see a huge spike on my model, something big's going to happen, even if it's not an 80-day high or low. It just shows activity on certain dates. I guess that's the way to explain it.
Okay, interesting. Very good. So what's the crystal ball telling us about the future? When 100K?
I have no idea, but I do have a price target this time around because it happens to line up. And it's based on the last cycle that just ended. There's some 11 to 16 month cycle in crypto. That's the one that peaked in March, bottomed in August. And we just had a breakout of that, right? On November 5, Bitcoin broke out above 73K. That's the high of this big cycle. And based on that cycle, based on the breakout, we would be seeing $150,000 Bitcoin by February or March. So this would be sometime in February, because it's between February 5 and March 5, we would see $150,000 Bitcoin. So when 100K, I don't know, but my target for this run is to end in Q1. It could be mid to late Q1 next year. 150,000 will be the target. The way I do that is if you take the low, which is 50,000, and you triple that, that gives you the approximate high. The low is 50K, you triple that, 150K. Another way to forecast the high of the cycle is to take the high in the previous cycle and double that. The high in the previous cycle is 73, 74K. If you double that, that's 147, 148K, also 150K. So it happens to line up. So that is the rate. This is how I predicted new all-time high before the halving, by the way. Last year, I just did the same thing. I just applied the same technique. Triple at 25K low, 75K. And if you doubled it, if you doubled the high with 60K, but so I had a range between 60 and 75K. It has worked so far. You know, it's hard for me to imagine 150K, 6-digit Bitcoin. And I know it's going to struggle at 100K. I mean, I don't know. I just think it will. And I have so much Bitcoin now that it's hard to wrap my head around that. Such a high, it seems high really, but it's really not. It's still undervalued at 150, 200K. I think Bitcoin is undervalued. I do think it heads to 500,000 between now and the next decade. But I think we're about to hit a major milestone, crossing 100K for the first time in history. Look, I'll be honest. I thought it would struggle at 80K, and it didn't. It just ripped right through. I was like, oh, there's a lot of strength here. As we're talking, it seems to be struggling at 90K. So it's always, all markets do this. They find these round the psychological numbers, and then they trade around those. Now you might say technically the high is 92. It hit 93, I think. Let me see the chart here. It hit 93 on Wednesday the 13th. So a week after the election, hit 93, but it didn't close there. It seems to me it is struggling to cross the 90K barrier. But I don't think it stops. I don't think it stops at 100K. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, miners are not buying, whales are selling, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I'm a cycles guy. This thing just broke out. And it's a big cycle that just broke out. These rallies last for months. Not to say that it's not going to stop. In fact, my model says it might stop now. November to early December is what it's saying, when it's saying it might stop. And I don't have forecasts for 2025. I haven't done those yet.
So just so I'm clear in what you're saying here, when you throw around that number of 150 and you say it's cycle high, you're talking about your cycle and some of your cycles. You're not talking about the 4-year Bitcoin.
No, no, there's another rally after that.
Yeah, so you think
So it
150
would,
on the next rally to March, and then there's another rally after that, even higher through
yeah,
until Q3-ish.
Q3-ish. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of lining up with where I think. I think the next little pause that we get after 92 is going to be around 102, is what I'm seeing. But yeah, it's very, very exciting. Um,
Yeah.
it's just it's good times, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
I mean it's look at us with our shit-eating grins here. But how can you not, right? We've patiently been hodlers and accumulators for years, and
Yeah.
so when you make a prediction and bet a decent amount of your net worth on it, and it comes true, how are you not going to have a smile on your face? So that's where we are. I hope it's where lots and lots of my students are. I hope they had the conviction. I hope I was persuasive enough to get them to do what I think they should do. And right now they're looking very, very good. So yeah, I mean, hopefully now most of my students are fully vested. If you're brand new and you're not here yet, is it the best time to get in? No, of course not. 70 was better. And before that, 50 was better. And before that, 20 was better. But there's still time to enjoy a good chunk of this bull run. If you're not fully invested, now's the time to get in there. After that next pump, I think after the double top of last year. So that I think
Yeah.
I'm a little gun shy. So I would have said, let's just March. Let's say it does what you say it's going to do, and we're sitting somewhere in the 130 to 150 range come March of next year. I think on previous cycles, I would have been, no, you're good. Keep going. Keep sticking your money in. You'll be good for a little while, but you can't last long. We got to get out. Got to get you out in 3 or 4 months. But there's a chunk of this ride that you can participate in. After the double top of last year, I'm a little gun shy on that. I think I might stop advocating accumulation, probably as soon as March next year. So we'll see. Even though what I'm thoroughly convinced of for the 2020 cycle with the double top is that thing was chopped in half because of FTX. We just didn't find out about it until the following year. Now we all know about the Chinese mining rule change, right? We got that.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know at the time, that what came out a year later, was that FTX was accepting hundreds of millions and billions of dollars and telling people you bought Bitcoin. And we've gone to the market and we've bid up the price and we've bought Bitcoin and here it is and you can see it on your screen and your screen says you own Bitcoin. Meanwhile, they weren't doing any accumulating. It wasn't there. And so that drastically stole the big runoff on the next on the next leg on that one, and hence the whole cycle was muted. And things like that can happen. So just got to be a little bit cautious here. But yeah, I think we still got plenty more juice left in this season. What do you think?
I agree 100%. Just to echo some of what you said, but I'm coming at it from a completely different angle. I actually wrote a report recently, which I wouldn't mind sharing with some of you because a lot of people have asked for it. I did a deep dive into like how the 4-year cycle breaks into 1-year chunks. Is this 11-month cycle roughly that I've tracked? Thing is, in the last cycle, we didn't have an 11-month cycle. We had a 16-month cycle. It was much longer. And a bunch of newcomers to crypto who are also doing cycles, I attend some of their conferences, they're convinced there's a 16-month cycle in Bitcoin. I'm like, well, I've never seen it. That's because I started my cycle work in Bitcoin in 2017, not in 2022. So I didn't see this 60-month cycle. Yet when I look at the past bull market, it is there. What I'm trying to say is last cycle was weird. It was very different. Not only does it not break down into 4 phases, it breaks down into 3 phases, 16 months each. There's only one bullish one, the one in the middle. There's 3 phases to the last 4-year cycle, and only one was bullish, the one in 2020, which ended in April 2021. I'm talking about Bitcoin. The altcoins are different. The cycle that comes after that took completely truncated, double top, and it also lasted almost exactly 60 months. But this one, the one that started with the crash of FTX, November 2022, this one looks normal. This one looks a lot more like previous cycles. So I'm leaning in the direction of, well, this cycle has looked normal so far. I think it will continue to be normal. And if so, after March, we may see a new high, but I'm with you. I will not advocate for accumulation post-March top. I am concerned about other things. I'm a macro analyst. I'm celebrating this market and Trump victory and team crypto and not deregulation of crypto, proper regulation of crypto in the States. I think that's going to open up a whole new set of opportunities, especially for Americans to capture. I think that's actually bullish. But I'm still concerned that liquidity is not there. I'm going to start shifting toward what is the Fed going to do? What are rates going to look like? What is the bond market saying? And I think if anything's going to kill the rally post March, it may be lackluster liquidity, which we've had so far in this bull market. The one thing that's been missing, in my opinion, is just the central banks printing with reckless abandon. They haven't actually done that. Now, this cycle we're in now, I think might end around Trump's inauguration. So this is a Trump celebration cycle. I think this rally, this 320-day cycle rally, this 11-month cycle rally, the one that ends in Q1, this is not going to stop until Trump is inaugurated. Then after that, maybe the market is disappointed, not unlike what happened with the ETFs. It was all ETF, 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 but the moment the ETFs are approved, bam, big correction, 20% down. And then we had, oh no, but the inflows are coming. And then we had another month or so to rally. And then after March, everybody was saying, oh, those are just hedge funds doing arbitrage. And the whole ETF mania just faded almost as quickly as it begun. So there's always something that drives the cycle. And if it's a powerful catalyst, like an ETF getting approved or a pro-crypto administration taking over the White House, these narratives will last for a few months. But after that, you need to look for the next narrative. All of these rallies are fueled by some sort of narrative around Bitcoin, crypto in general. So I see this one. I don't know what the next one is going to be. So I'm with you. I guess it's a long way of saying I'm with you. I think we do have the double top from the last cycle. Let's see how high it goes. This is why I'm predicting 150K for this cycle. I don't think it's going to double or triple that top. I don't think it's going to go to 300K in this cycle. I think 200-ish is where this thing stops. Again, because overall, I'm concerned that we're heading into like a dry spell in liquidity. So how high is it going to go? I don't know.
Do you think we're going to have an alt season like normal?
Man, maybe people are finally burned out on altcoins. I'm very public in saying I'm not a fan of altcoins. I own a few of them. I'm doing great on my meme coins, by the way, including Peanut. Shout out to Peanut, great meme coin. So other than meme coins, I have a huge watch list. I struggle to see. I mean, you have the Solanas, the Sui too. I think is being wheeled up by Raul Pal and his following. I'm not accusing him on anything. I'm just saying it's a popular amongst influencers, so it is going up. But then you have quality altcoins. I would say Chainlink, Arbitrum. I don't know, I'm just looking at my screen here. They're not doing much. So I don't know.
Even Ethereum is a bit of a dog.
Oh, Ethereum, I think, is in a world of its own. In fact, I was looking at some stats. I think it was yesterday. Ethereum is an outlier amongst the altcoins now. Like it's not even following the altcoin market. It's just in a world of its own. I think it's getting eaten away by the competition, especially Solana. I think a lot of the retail that fueled the Ethereum rally last time, they just moved over to Solana because you can't use Ethereum nowadays. I mean, it's $50 per transaction. I mean, they've come way down since 2021, which was where you were paying $300 per transaction, which is when I turned bearish and I converted half of my ETH to Bitcoin just on that, just on the fact that it was unusable. I was like, okay, I don't know how this thing can continue to pump after 5K. And now I do think it's undervalued. And I do think that's being punished unfairly. Ethereum is still a thriving ecosystem. It's still the largest smart contract chain in the world. But if I look at my own usage, I would say that for every transaction I do in Ethereum now, maybe I do 10 on Solana. And I think that's what's driving Solana. And I think that's what's driving the Solana ETH chart to all-time highs. It is at all-time highs. I switched most of my Ether to Solana. Great trade. I think it's getting eaten by competition.
And this concept is this when you leave Bitcoin. It's very important for our listeners to understand. Bitcoin doesn't have competition in its class. Whereas with the altcoin, you might get these narratives where Ethereum's a big deal one day, but then it's Solana, and it's the same group of people that'll rotate through.
Yeah.
Just it's very important to understand that. So when one cycle there'll be a top dog, but in that next cycle, it doesn't have to be the same top dog. Whereas Bitcoin is going to be the top dog cycle after cycle after cycle. And so that's really important for people to understand. If you want to just put your money away and forget about it for a decade, which I actually highly recommend, both from a tax perspective and also managing your emotions perspective, Bitcoin is the only game in town. If you start choosing the alts, you might have a really good cycle, but unless you're going in and out of them and you know what you're doing, probably better off just doing Bitcoin. All right.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Juan? We'll get actually a more specific question. Any really specific dates that you want to drop to us that we should pay attention to?
I'm just going to share the only 2 dates that my model has between now and year end. Again, I'll share the forecast for 2025 when I have them, but I don't have them now. I'm waiting for second half of December. Right now, what I have is a top around this week. Actually, it was November 19th. We're recording, so it could top out now. And then it shows a big, considerable spike on December 5. My interpretation is nothing happens between now and early December. That's my interpretation. I could be completely wrong, but I'm just throwing it out there for people to who are listening, keeping track of this. The next key date is December 5. It shows up as a low, which means Bitcoin may not do anything between now and December 5-ish, plus minus 5 days or so. And that is my base case. I'm actually not even watching the charts now because 90K looks very good. So I'm not even watching it because I'm like, I think it takes a break. By the way, this is exactly what happened last year. And my model was showing something very similar. It was showing a big spike for a top in November. But the force of the breakout was so strong that all it did was just create sideways noise. So I've seen that in the model. When the trend is super strong, when I get big turning points on my model, usually what happens is pause and then it keeps going. Which, speaking of that, the one thing I do want to say, which I've been saying a lot, is stop trying to nail the top. You don't know where it is. Like everybody's writing to me saying, should I sell now? Oh, there's this. I have a trend line from sorry for the language, but I have a trend line from 2018. It's hitting the trend line now. I'm like, yeah, don't do any of that. With crypto, just respect the pump. That's something people like to say from the old days, at least. Respect the pump. When this thing goes, it goes. So don't try to nail the top. Rather, if you're trying to trade, which I advise against, wait for the market to pull back because it's not going to top out now. It just broke out. These trends last for months. It will not top out now. Listen, maybe it does. Maybe it's the first time that it actually we get a truncated cycle. It stops right away. But chances are it won't. In no likelihood, it's just going to keep going into Q1 next year. So don't try to pick the top. Don't be smart. Don't try to pick the top. Just enjoy the ride.
I like it. All right, Juan, thanks very much, guys. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions for Juan, drop them in the comments below. We'll answer them in the next video, and I'll see you soon. Take care.